Author is Lia Langworthy. She is a mom, woohoo, mom, writer, feminist, poet, and native of Los Angeles. Primarily a TV writer, The Shield and Soul Food. She also teaches at UCLA's Extension Writing Program. She is currently working on her MFA at UC Riverside Low Residency writing for the Performing Arts Program and is writing a memoir. Please welcome Lia Langworthy.
I need to update my bio. I graduated. Woohoo! Yeah, I need to update that. I am reading a short excerpt from an essay I wrote for Writers Resist about processing Trump's victory. It's written in the form of a letter to my daughter, who's sitting right there. I had to embarrass her. So this is for you. Oh, Lord. Daughter, on election night, I finally fell asleep around 4 a.m. You had been asleep for hours. I dreamt of my uncle, my white, alcoholic Uncle Russ. In my dream, I was helping him paint a room army green. He stood high on a ladder, painting, where the wall meets the ceiling, and I stood below him, holding his wares. I adored my uncle, despite himself and his ways. His pet name for me, his favorite niece, was his little Niglet. Nigger means piglet. Every time he called me this, I glanced at my mom and hoped she'd stick up for me, scream obscenities at him, or better yet, threaten to never speak to him again if he insisted on calling me such an ugly thing. Instead, my mother claimed powerless over her brother's actions and accepted his sad excuse of "I mean no harm, and you know how much I love Lia." She instructed me to ignore him, to take the high road, and in doing so, his words and her complicity went unchecked. She chose placating her white brother over protecting her biracial daughter. She chose to align herself with him to ensure her access to his privilege, however unequally it was shared. Daughter, white privilege is real, even for an underprivileged, poor, and uneducated white woman like your grandmother. Raised by foster families as an unwanted orphan, my mother grew up into a woman who demanded little and settled for less. She accepted harassment as love. Despite her deep love for her only daughter, she was unable to stand up for me since she never learned how to do so for herself. Despite my mother's difficult childhood, she nonetheless belonged as a white woman. When she bought new nylons, they matched the color of her skin. When she turned on the TV, she saw her face reflected back at her. Being underprivileged did not negate all the subtle and unearned privileges her whiteness granted her. However, my mom refused to accept that she held any such privilege, and I accepted her ignorance, for she had been conditioned to believe such privileges didn't exist. History has shown time and time again, white women choose their attachments to white men, the most powerful group in America, over themselves. They did so on election day. They chose to vote for a sexual predator, ensuring the continuation of abusive white male dominance in this country. My mother, like many white women, are collaborators of white male privilege, benefiting in part from their dominance, even if not entirely in their best interest. Daughter, as a woman of color, you will have many white women claim to be your ally. Be wary. I do not say this to inflict fear, hate, or mistrust, but instead to share the truth rooted in past betrayals. During the suffrage movement of the early 20th century, white women sought the right to vote, yet fought blacks who demanded the same right, claiming inherent superiority. Historically, white women have abandoned their black sisters when their white privilege is threatened. White women who ignore their race privilege and focus solely on sexism are blind to their status, power, and authority. Like my mother, many are completely unable to reconcile their powerlessness with their privilege. Yet, we women of color with less status, power, authority, voted overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton. We women of color are of a different ilk. Our oppression is birthed from a different strain of contempt, one more deeper than most white women will ever know. Daughter, I am your mother, and it's my job to protect and prepare you for years ahead. My mother was unable to educate me about the insidious ways of systemic racism. She was unwilling to call out my uncle's racist bullshit or defend my identity. I overlooked her limitation and inability to own her privilege because I needed to love her more than hate her, to excuse her blindness to my plight. But I will not follow her naive and misguided advice to ignore racism, misogyny, or oppression. Instead, I will give you what I should have demanded from my mother. I will sit and share your discomfort. I will stand up against ugliness on your behalf. I will do what's right even when my knees shake. I will not allow Trump's ugly beliefs, policies, or positions to infiltrate our home or your goodness. I will channel my empathy towards all those who received a painful and disempowering message that our country codified racism, misogyny, and bigotry. I will value the inherent human dignity of every person, no matter what race, religion, age, identity, or creed. I will invite blacks, Muslims, dreamers, immigrants, and refugees into our family. I will welcome friends and strangers alike to soldier on for love. I will celebrate women in our bodies, which belong to us and only us. Last night, I dreamt of my uncle again. This time, I screamed obscenities in his face on my behalf and yours.